Hi, this is Ginger Cook. This morning, what I thought might be fun to do is paint another Van Gogh painting. We did the blue-green vase with zinnias and other flowers the last video, and you guys really liked it, so I thought, well, maybe I would just continue on and we would do another sort of companion piece to that. This is called his Poppies, the Van Gogh Poppies, and I think this is a nice vase, and we're going to do this. And I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the colors we're going to be using before we get too far along. We're going to be using white, that's titanium white, Red Medium, that's Cadmium Red Medium, right here, that's this one. Then we're going to be using yellow oxide or yellow ochre, depending on your brand of acrylic paint. This is all acrylics. Cadmium Yellow Medium, and I'm not kidding about these colors. You know, you want these colors. Napthol Crimson, which is your regular, just a normal red. See, that's your Napthol Crimson. And then Ultramarine Blue. You may not have bought this, but if you don't own Dioazine Purple, you need this. This is a really good color to have to your acrylic stash of colors. Burnt Umber, Burnt Sienna, which is a reddish brown. And then I've added two more that I'm going to suggest you buy at some point. It may not be in your budget right away. Matisse makes something called Deep Scarlet, Matisse Scarlet, DPP, and it's a Series 7. Now, Series 4 is about as expensive as they get. The more that they go up in numbers, for instance, white is a number 1. See that Series 1? That's your least expensive. You browns and whites are usually 1s. You may not know what these numbers mean on your paint tubes. All the brands do it. And the higher the number, the more expensive the paint. And the most expensive paint Matisse makes is a Scarlet Deep. No, it's a Series 7. And I like this one, and they make an orange, Matisse Orange, which is also a Series 7. And trust me, these have so much more pigment. They're so much brighter. You can get by with the Cad Red Medium, which is a 4, and the Napthol Crimson, believe it or not, is a 3. So that ought to give you kind of an idea about paint colors. Here's a Cadmium Yellow Medium. That's a 4. So when you're talking about what's expensive and what's not, here yellow oxide, on the other hand, is a 1, and it all depends on the ingredients that go into these paints. So kind of pay attention to that if you're wondering why your paint bill is up there. So today we're going to just take this little picture and we're going to turn it into an 8x10 canvas. I don't know if we're going to do this in an hour or not. If we don't, we're going to break it up into 2 parts. It'll be part 1 and part 2. I'll put them both up on YouTube. This is for you guys. I'm using a deep edge Winsor Newton canvas with the wider edge. And I'm going to show you a quick trick right now. We're not going to rush through this. We're not on fire here. We're going to do this. Take this off. Like that. Now I want to suggest that you buy some light sandpaper and lightly sand your canvas. And you're going, gosh, why would I do that? Well, the reason that you do that is because this surface over the cotton is put on at the factory, and sometimes it can be a little rough. And you will really, boy, it's really rough here. Now, why does that make a difference to you? Well, all right, do you see what a nice chiseled edge I have on this brush? Well, let's see if I can find one without. This brush no longer has that chiseled edge. It's kind of wide now. And the reason is that when you paint on a rough surface, you wear your brushes out. You're thinking you just didn't wash them well, but your brushes wear out, anyway, but they wear out much quicker if your canvas is rough. And you're going, man, I didn't know that. Thank you so much. Yeah, aren't you glad you tuned in for that? So you don't need much. I mean, I promise you, this is like, you barely need to just sort of lightly dust the surface. But there it is. I'm sort of light. I can kind of feel where I haven't done it. Kind of lightly up here, maybe a little bit. And all right, now I'm going to put the sandpaper away. And, probably, I guess, could you take a little rag and wipe that off? Sure, but I don't care about that. Now, what we're going to do is I want you to kind of look at this painting. We need 2 different underpaintings. If you look at the size of the little photograph I found, this is 6 inches, and about, I think that let's see, so right up from the bottom is about 1.5 inches, his whole thing. So we're going to come up about, for my 8x10, we're going to come up about think about 3 inches will be pretty good. I'm not trying to do this exactly, but I'm going to say I'm going to come up about 3 inches, make a mark. About 3 inches, make a mark. Come over here on the other side with my ruler, make a little mark. I'm using chalk. Don't use pencil. You guys think that pencil doesn't paint over, okay? So let's see. That doesn't feel like 3 inches to me. Here it is. Here it is. I guess it is. All right, so I'm just going to draw a little line across here like that. All right, so I'm going to base, oops, that's crooked. This is why we like chalk, because it wipes off with a damp rag and kind of just erase it really easy. All right, so there's our, this is going to be the bottom of the canvas, and then all this is going to be the top. And if I show you the picture, this is going to be the red part, and this is going to be the darker part. So we need underpaintings for both of these. An underpainting is the color that goes underneath the color that goes underneath the colors. And I think in our case, what I'd like to do, if I'm just examining this and saying, what would be a good underpainting? What's the color that's kind of peeking through? It's a really, really dark brown. So I'm going to take a large brush, because it's a big canvas, and we're not going to fool around with this today. We're going to get a big enough brush to sort of cover all the stuff, okay? This is a number 8 Ruby Satin Silver. And I'm going to lightly mist the canvas now. Oh, this is another trick you didn't know. Lightly mist it. Not get it all wet. Just lightly mist it. This is a fine mist with water. Lightly mist it with water. And I'm just going to take Burnt Umber, little Ultramarine Blue, just both on the brush. I don't have to be that perfect about it. And I'm going to go ahead and just, come on, let's move on down so you can see me. I'm going down and across, and sort of weaving these colors on together. I'm not making a little pile of paint on the plate. Just keeping a scoop of Burnt Umber, a little bit of Ultramarine Blue, and mixing these together. That's a very nice deep dark brown. And you'll notice that when you do this, it because we misted the canvas and sanded it, it's going on very easily. So here we go. And don't be afraid to use paint. You'll notice watch how often I get paint. Watch how often I get paint. Now this is a gallery wrap canvas, so if you're doing this, take the time. I will not, but take the time to paint the sides. You want to go ahead and paint the sides of this, as long as you've got the colors out. Now at this point, I have pretty much exhausted my supply of Burnt Umber. And the reason I don't put very much out is, guess what? You can't get the stuff back in the tube. So I like to just put out a small amount of paint at a time, and then see how it goes. And I know where the paint lives. I can get more paint. So here we go. So if you're enjoying these lessons, that I put on YouTube, I've had people, do some requests. I'm always interested in what you're learning, what you'd like to learn to paint. I do a weekly, 2 classes a week over the internet on a subscription basis, a Ginger Cook Live. And that's always fun. And we're going to start a new thing here pretty soon in the next couple of months, where you'll be able to just get individual lessons also. Maybe not, but it'll be sort of fun. You want to see what I paint, go up to Ginger Cook Live, all one word, on Pinterest. And you'll see the, what my students are doing. And if you send me your pictures of this, I'll put them up there too under Online Gallery, where you can see what people are doing, what my fellow artists are painting. Okay, so this is my underpainting. I'm not going to dry it right yet. I need something under here. And I think I'd like it to have more of a reddish glow. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm just going to go into, say, Napthol Crimson. And I'm just going to go ahead, and remember, I didn't wash the brush. Just going to go ahead and paint the bottom of this red. I think I'd like this as an underpainting for this. I talk all the time, and people say, who is this artist in Hawaii she keeps talking about? I can't remember this gal's name. But I was in Hawaii, and I went into her studio, and she does every underpainting in red first, which is, fun. She had some interesting ideas about that, and everybody's got a choice of what to do for an underpainting. But you see, now we've got this all nice and red. Now what happens to this brush? This goes into water, and you rinse it. You may not be using it right away, but just rinse it. Make a point of rinsing it. I'm going to take the hairdryer, hold it very close to this canvas, and I'm going to dry it. I might even take a little ruler or something, kind of force the air back on the canvas. Yeah, there you go. All right, that looks pretty dry. Now, something sort of interesting happened. When I touch this, it's not as tight as a drum. If I turn this over, you can see that this has been stapled around wooden stretcher bars, and this doesn't feel loose enough. So I'm going to take my spray bottle and just are tight enough. It should be, your canvas should be tight as a drum. Sometimes by the time it gets to you, wherever you live, lots of things have happened to it. It may not be tight. You can spray a little water on the back of your cotton. This is fabric, cotton fabric, like they use in sailboats. And trust me, even hot water is even more effective. But you spray a little water on the back of this, and it will tighten up your canvas, particularly if you take the hairdryer then and dry it. Just spray a little water and dry it. And that will tighten up your canvas a bit. So just a little tip that you can do. Okay, so I'm looking at this this picture, and I want to sort of, in acrylics, we can do things so much differently than others, but I want you to notice the paint strokes. Look how everything is sort of circular. Do you see this? It's going around this way, it's going around this way, it's all circular, and what it's doing, this is a portrait. You're going, portraits of people. No, portraits, this is a single flower, and it's a vase, and I'm going to just measure from this one side to the other. This is like about 2 inches here, and not quite, it's just slightly off center, but not by much. It's like it's not dead center in the middle, but it's almost, but everything else is sort of going around in this direction, the brushstrokes, and that makes a difference. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and put in our next layer of paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, wipe it off, the one we were using, because I want a fairly large brush for this. And let's see, I probably want a palette knife of some kind. But I'm going to mix sort of a blue-purple, and it's going to start off, it's on this side of the grayscale. What are we talking about? Well, if you shot this, if this whole picture were black and white, you can see that these sort of purpley blue gray colors are on this side of the grayscale, where this dark brown color is on this side of the grayscale, okay? If this was a black and white picture. So what you need to learn or remember when you're mixing paint is that if the colors is on this light side of the grayscale, then you need to start with your lightest color first. Well, in this case, it would be white. So we're going to start with white. We're going to pull some white out here in the middle. We're going to take a little bit of Ultramarine Blue. And also, it's hard to say exactly what colors these were looking at a photograph, because they're very protective at museums of pictures and private collections, because every time a flash goes off, it sort of takes away a little bit from the paint. Now, I added a little tiny bit of Dioazine Purple in that, and I've got a little tiny bit of Burnt Umber, and I've got this sort of interesting gray color. See, I'm scraping and squishing, and I kind of like that. So let's could have added a little bit of Cad Red Medium, but we're not. So I'm going to take some of this gray color, and what I want to do here is I want to start sweeping some paint going in this direction, and then I'm going to just sort of sweep it in this direction. And we're just sort of sweeping it in this direction, keeping this very loose. Don't try to let some of this brown show through, like this, keeping it all the way around. We can zoom back out. Here we go. So, all right, then we're going to come up around this way, sweep this way. We want it sort of dark in the center where his flowers are going to be, but this is all coming down in this direction, like this. It's coming around like this, and this is just our first layer, okay? I'll put this brush away, and I'm going, well, what might be a good way to get this technique? You see this? What might be a good way to get this technique? Well, one thing I can do So I could take my palette knife now. Oh, she's doing a palette knife now. Put a little into this brown. And I want you to see what happens if I kind of take the palette knife like this. Oh, we're doing palette knife techniques. And keeping it kind of flat, scrape over this. A little bit of burnt umber, a little bit of the background color now, and I'm sitting right on top of this. Palette knives eat up paint like crazy, you guys. So here's some burnt umber going right on top of this wet gray. See that? Right on top of this wet gray. I'm going to go this way. A little bit more of this gray color here. Now, I've got to mix some more. When you're using a palette knife, it will eat up your paint. I promise you, it will just eat it up. It takes it up, but we're going to do a lot of this painting with a palette knife. I didn't tell you that in the beginning, but I've decided that's what we're going to do. Let's just expand on our repertoire of how we're going to do things. That's too bright a blue, see that? So let's put a little more Dioazine Purple, a little bit more burnt umber. Now, just come right over here like this. Pull it down to here. All right, now here's the trick. Got some of this going this way. Put a little white on here. Got some of this going this way. But remember, everything's circular. You're tracking with me on here, true? And let's see, come up like this and say, then keep it light. Otherwise, you'll just end up with one color. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to dry this. Takes a little bit of time, but we're going to dry this. A little bit different. I'm going to dry it. Really dry it well. Now we're not using any mediums with this, so it's still tacky, but it's sort of, what I would tell you is it's not completely dry. It's still tacky, but it's good enough for our purposes. All right, now I'm going to wipe off the palette knife because I'm going white on this. I want to go back with dark brown, and I think I'm going to have to move it to a different plate because when you're trying to go back to a dark color, you can't have any white on it. All right, there can't be any white. So let's pull a little bit of ultramarine blue and dark brown here, like that. Maybe a tiny bit of Napthol crimson. It's a little bit of red to this, like that. Okay, now I'm going to come in here like this with my palette knife and just bring over the top of this. I want it darker. See that? Over the top. I'm going to come this way with this because this was sort of dark on this side. And then up in here, I'm going to float the palette knife almost like this, just using the edge of it now. And I know I want it darker in the middle near the flowers. So I'm going to just make sure I have some dark edges here. So it's all dark over here to the flowers. All right, now I'm going to come up here with this corner, darken this. Now, I haven't dried this completely. Got sort of this almost a triangle shape in the middle. I haven't dried this completely, but I want you to see how fast the burnt umber just disappeared. To start with this plate, it just really goes quickly. When you're doing a palette knife, it's like spreading peanut butter on toast. This is pure burnt umber now, and that's not dark enough. So let's pull a little ultramarine blue with it. And at this, what I would tell you when you're doing palette knife paintings is that you actually have to get out the paint. But we want some texture on here. We're going to come in here like this. Say that this is our, still following the brush strokes going around. See that? We're still trying to say that this is going around like this. This is going up like this. Okay, so then you're going, wow, this is, can we come back and paint over this? You bet. But we've got some interesting texture, and we've done it a little bit thicker. I'm going to kind of scrape off a little bit thinner here, where the vase is going to go right here. I'm going to scrape it off here so I don't have it too thick, because we're going to do a little palette knife on the vase too. All right, now I'm going to wipe off the palette knife with a rag while you still can. This will dry on here like cement. And let's just dry this. And I want you to see kind of what we did here. Can you see it? Can you see that? So that's what we did. Let's just really dry this. Force the air back onto this. Force the air back. Now, if we had used some sort of texture, say golden heavy gloss gel, and added that to our paint, this wouldn't have dried for a long time. It'd be hard to do a demo like that. And I wouldn't want it that thick in the background anyway. Now this, I'm touching this. This is dry on top, but not all the way through because it's thicker. But that's all right, I don't care. This is good enough for what we want to do. This is good enough for what we want to do, and we can still keep going here. Now, I want to just take a moment and draw my vase on with chalk. And I want to come down here, probably, I don't know, a couple of fingers from the bottom. And let's see, if this is let's just talk about this for a minute, because remember he centered this, but not quite. So if this is 8 inches wide, here's the center, okay? So I'm going to just say that this is going to be, I'm going to move this over a little bit. Say that there's the center of my vase. And it's going to come up here like this, into a straight line up here like this, and sort of curves around like this. Doesn't go up too much further. I'm going to skip over that little fat bit of paint here. Just use chalk. And why are we using chalk? Let me just show you why. Because if you do a line you don't like, just erase it. Do you see that? It just erases with a damp rag. So, all right, so curve it down here. This is just like a little rectangle. Sure, this is curved. If you're not sure if you have straight lines, take a little triangle, line it up with something straight. See, I'm pretty straight here. Line it up with something straight. Look like the bottom of your canvas. You see that? So if you're not sure, you want your lines straight on a vase. So use a ruler if you have to, but line it up like that. Now, everything above here is going to be poppies, and this is the vase. And I'm going to lower my table about this far down. I'm going to lower my table. I'm just looking at this now. How much of the vase, if I'm doing this like this, maybe about here. So this is where I love chalk. I'm going to lower it a little bit. Just ignore that. I'm going to lower the table a little bit. This is what you can do with acrylics that you can't easily do with other paint. Okay? So, but you said, Ginger, how did you, okay, and then so if we're saying we lowered that, I'm going to take a little burnt umber and just say that this is, where's my other plate with the dark burnt umber? This is going to be my lower table here. And look, when you're talking about using a palette knife, that doesn't mean you just threw your brush away. You still have a brush. I'm going to say that this is dark like this. You can paint right over anything with a palette knife, too. So it's sort of a palette knife brush combination, but now we've lowered it, and this is an 8 by 10 canvas. So how far down did we go? We went down 7 inches from the top on an 8 by 10, 7 inches, okay? Now, I think at this point, I could go ahead and paint in the background color from my vase. That might be interesting. That might be interesting. Except that I didn't get this very well. Let's not fool around here. Let's just make sure we have this line. Notice I'm keeping the sweeping going. Where's some of that blue-gray color? Blue-gray color. I'm going to sweep some of that down here like this too, as long as I'm sweeping up. There we go. All right, so see how I did that? I'm going to do that later here, but not right now. All right, so I need this I need a background color. You're going, okay, so now what? Well, what's the color behind all of this? I think it's sort of a gray-green. So what we're going to make is a gray-green color. Well, again, where are we on the grayscale? This is important when you're figuring out how to mix colors. Where this vase, even if it was the darkest color in here, it's still going to fall on the light side of the grayscale. Might be here, but I'm going to start with yellow, just on GP. We're going to start with yellow. Cad Yellow Medium, okay, and I'm going to add Ultramarine Blue to that. And a little bit of, like 1% of Cad Red Medium. And I'm going to come in here like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint my vase on right over everything else. I'm going to paint the vase in. This is the underpainting of the vase. It's going over the red, it's going over the brown. And notice how your colors change when they go over something else. This is sort of important. Notice how they change, because yellow looks different over red than over blue and so forth. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to keep painting all the way down here. Move this out of the way. Like that. All right, now remember it's a little bit rounder here at the bottom. Just like that. This is an easy vase to paint. The Zinnia one actually had more shape to it, but there is a little bit of shape, but we'll talk about this later. All right, so there's our underpainting for the vase. Like that. Now, brushstrokes matter. So take your canvas now and sweep everything this way and this way. I'm a stickler for this. Start the grooves in the painting. Looks like the grooves in a record, an old vinyl record. Start the grooves going the right way. We want everything to be like that. And even that made a difference on this flat. It's very tricky, but it made a difference. All right, so make sure that, and any extra chalk just wipes off with a damp cloth later. So if you didn't get it perfect, don't worry about it. You'll wipe off with a damp cloth later. Now, because our flowers sort of overlap the vase, I think I want to do my vase and my ground part here pretty quick. So let's take a moment and just dry the vase. Force the air back onto the canvas. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to put out some Phalo blue. I didn't have any out before, but I can see from looking at his greens that I'm going to need a little of it. I'm going to put a little Phalo blue out. Here it is on the plate, a little Phalo. And that's the Thylacone blue, if you guys are wondering, Phalo blue. And incidentally, that's a series 2. It's a 2. What was Ultramarine Blue? Ultramarine Blue is a series 2 also, white being a 1. Okay, so now I want to say that I've got I'm going to add some white to this green that we made, all right, like this. Going to add some white to that, sort of have this off-white color. And I want to come around here like this on top of this dried vase and paint this in here. Let's just turn everything sideways, because I want my brush strokes to be going this way. Right up here on the edge, using a number 4 bright ruby satin silver brush. Now, see, it's not really white. I'm going to say that this is coming down here like this. I'm going to turn it around this way. Let's say this is coming over here on this edge like this. Let me show you a trick. Oh, she's got more tricks. Let me rummage around here for a minute, see if I can find my tape. Rummage around, rummage. I think I had some tape in a box here. Ah, I do. Here we go. Okay, this is called artist tape. And for those of you who are having a little trouble doing straight lines, you don't want like masking tape. This is actual real artist tape. It only works over dry paint, you guys, but it does work. Let's suppose that you felt like you needed a little help getting this edge. So you can take some tape right next to here like this. Okay, now here's the trick. Use your palette knife and squish it down. Remember, I wiped it off. You can just take your palette knife, cut off a piece like that. All right, now I'm going to come this way over the tape like that with my white and green, that kind of white, light white green. And I could even use a palette knife. This is what's so fun. This is why tape can be sort of helpful. You can use a palette knife, and if I haven't mixed my colors all that well, see that? Now here's the green, here's the white. See that? Here's the green, here's the white. I'm going to come down here like this. I get this sort of marbling effect, like that. Remember, I kind of sweep everything around. Now, I didn't tape this side. I just wanted you to see what it would be like. Maybe I'll tape this. This is all sort of this palette knife effect. Now, let's see what's happening over here. You can use the edge of your palette knife too as a straight edge too. You can use this edge, but I prefer to pull it this way. So here's the trick. What's she doing with the palette knife? Oh, okay, let me just show you. Hang on with me. All right, flattening it out. Scrape off the extra. Get a little bit on the edge like this. Hold it just at an angle and then pull. Like that. And that's another way to get a really good, pretty decent straight edge to your picture. See how I'm sweeping this right over the green. Sweeping that over there like this. I'm going to do it this way too. Just don't go over this too much or end up with one color, and that's not what you're going for. So let's take a little ultramarine blue, a little bit of yellow oxide now. I'm going to change the green on here, ultramarine blue and a little yellow oxide. And while I'm on here, barely touching this, I'm just going to barely touch this right over the top and just add. You're not going to get it exactly the same way he did, but this is an interesting technique. Right over the top of all of this. See, that's a little different. See how we're doing that to the base. Let me darken this up. It was a little white light here for you. Now you can kind of see more what I'm doing. And I had something going on here in the bottom. Now this isn't to say you can't you go back and use your brush. You can. You can go back and use your brush. But when you do something like this, and I'm going to go right on the edge here like this with the palette knife and bring it over and stop. Barely touching this. Pretend like you're putting ointment on a wound that really hurts, and the person you're doing it for is screaming at you to stop. That's how light a touch you want. Okay, see how we did that? Now, do you dry this? Yeah, you could. I'm going to take a little white paint while it's still wet. Pull a little bit on my palette knife and barely touch this. Now, trust me on this. Barely touch that. Almost holding it flat and allowing a little bit of this light to come over the top of this. And this takes. You might be better off to dry it before you try that. But anyway, you can see how I sort of got this nice textured bit to the paint here. And I'm going to want to come around here like this. Now this is where I would stop and take a little brush. This is where I'd stop and take a little brush. Same colors. And maybe paint the bottom of the vase. Like this. Just go ahead and paint around the bottom. And I sanded this, so I'm doing pretty well here. Take a little brush too. If you're having trouble, just do that. Little brush like that. Make sure you've got a good curve on the top of this. Okay, so there's your vase. Isn't that interesting? Now what happens when you take the tape off? Okay, I'll show you. Look at that. You got a really nice straight line. So if you can do this, you could do it the whole thing with a palette knife, because his vase isn't totally straight. This is a little bit too straight, but that's okay. I wanted you to kind of see. I think this is a more natural look, but I wanted you to see, because obviously he wasn't using tape, right, like that. So I might just come over this line with a bit of a brush and soften it just a little bit. I think that tape line is just a little bit too much for me. Pull the brush this way, pull everything that way, just a little bit. Soften that. There we go. All right, so I sort of softened that up a little bit. I didn't want it that straight, but that's what tape can do for you, and particularly if you're having trouble, doing this. Now, what happens to this? Okay, it goes back in the water, and then we're drying this vase. That's just all there is to it. You've got to dry the vase. Oh, but before that, what could we do? Before that, remember we painted it green. So I can take the palette knife, and right around here, I can scrape a dark edge. See how I'm just scraping the bottom, scraping a little of the paint off. Like that. And I've got that little dark curved edge of the vase. Isn't that a cute trick? Just needed that down there. And when I paint this in, I will round this corner off here. I will round this off here because I don't like that. I'll round that one off. But now I've got this part. And I'm pretty much happy with my vase, except that I wanted a little bit lighter right up here. A little bit lighter right here. I'm going to layer up a little more paint on it right there. And that's what I'm talking about. Just a little bit. And take some white. Barely touch it. Right here, I'm going to just, right on top of all this, I'm going to layer in a little more white, barely touching it. So this is, you know, if you were doing oils, you'd have to, you know, very carefully do it this way. Let's make sure we've got a good edge here with the palette knife. And the nice thing about acrylics is you can clean up an edge. It's very easy to do. You can clean up an edge simply by either erasing or taking another color. If I wanted this, if I got a little bit carried away here, I might see that brush is dirty. I might take a cleaner brush, a little water, and clean up this edge. And I'm showing you all these things because you may not have done it perfectly. Don't panic. This all cleans up like that. So I'm going to clean up that edge. This goes in water. Now, remember we talked about drying this. We could dry it, but I think yeah, let's just dry it for a minute. Let's just take a minute and dry it. And I mean, we really have to dry it. Now we've got some thick paint on here. And we have to take a moment and dry this. It's on high heat. Okay, that is still wet. You know how I can tell? This is still wet because it's real shiny right there. This little bit right here is really wet. The last little bit I put on, it is really wet. Let me dry it. Okay, well that's finishing drying because we've got it started now. I'm going to work on the table. Now I wouldn't want to use tape on the table. I don't want that, but I'm going to sit there and say that we need some sort of rustic a brown color. So I'm going to take some Burnt Sienna, little Cad Red Medium up here like this, a little bit of yellow, make sort of this sort of orange table thing, and I'm going to come across here like this. So it's the next coat of color on my table. I'm being fairly aware of where my vase is when I go around it. Okay, so this is sort of our reddish brown table. Remember I said I was going to round the edge on this vase a little bit when I came around with the table. And this is our second coat. We had an underpainting of red. And now we're saying that this is our second coat on the table. Now I'm already out of paint. So you saw how I mixed it. Little Cad Red Medium, little Burnt Sienna, little Cad Yellow Medium. And come up here like this. And just do the table in like this. Okay, make sure you curve around. And look, if you mess... You can always, if you accidentally get some of that color on your vase, you know how to paint the vase back. So this is not a disaster. I didn't, but you might have. Now, while this is still wet, we're going to put some colors in here. While this is still wet, let's take, where's our palette knife? Let's do that again. Let's just clean off the palette knife and see what we can do with that. We've laid something in here now. I don't want any blue on the palette knife, which means I have to take a rag and clean all this off. Take some rag and clean all this off. Now look, you could have done this whole painting and never done a palette knife too. I should have told you that. This is just, could have done this with just brush strokes. And let's see, where's another? Here, do you guys know this trick that one palette knife cleans another? One palette knife will clean another. If you've got something dried on it, just take one palette knife and clean another. So, all right, so I want something sort of interesting in the foreground of this. I'm going to just come back and show you our picture. Pretty interesting, huh? But I want something, I've got this texture on the vase. I think I'd like some texture on here. So let's take a little bit of our color now and just go on top of this. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow oxide and mix it with some Cad Red Medium. I think I need a flat place when I'm doing a palette knife. I need a plate that's actually flat. Here's some Cadmium Yellow Medium, a little yellow oxide. I might come up here like this and just say that there's some of this color. I'm using the palette knife now. Here like this. Coming this way, and then maybe I'll come over here with something like this, scraping and squishing. If you've ever frosted a cake, you'd probably be good at this. Then we take a little burnt umber and mix it with that. Little burnt umber and mix it with that. And while this is still wet, just sort of scraping this on. I'm sort of basically mixing all this on the canvas at the same time with the knife. So here's a little burnt umber, mixed it into the orange. Now I'm going right under here like this. But I just wanted something a little bit different. I got it a little bit darker brown back here, and this will give me some texture right next to the vase. Pull it that way. Use the knife, pull it that way. Scraping and squishing. Try not to make it all one color. It's a little bit darker brown in here in the front. A little bit darker, see, down in here. Look how fast we made a wooden table. Now we try to do exactly like this. And he's got a shadow over here, which I'll probably put in later. I can do a lot of stuff with the brush. But what I wanted to happen here was to give this table enough texture where it sort of went with the rest of the painting. You can have all this texture and then no texture down here. That would be bizarre. Pure burnt umber down here now. Don't do overkill, because this is all still wet. Don't do overkill. Alright, so, let's take a little bit of Cad Red Medium now. While we still, no, Napthol Red. Let's take some Napthol Crimson and mix some of that on here. And I want a little red in here. Barely touch it. I want a little red on this face, maybe over here on this table. Maybe a little red. Okay, now you can kill this quickly, so do a couple of strokes and stop. I'd rather have you have less excitement going on in this table than just all one color. All right, so there's our table. And again, we can go over this with other colors later. You know, when you're mixing, this is just pure yellow oxide, making a little light spot right there. But I could have put this on later. Now, the advantage of putting it on while it's wet, pure yellow oxide now on my palette knife here, is that it's mixing into these other colors, which is a trickier effect to get otherwise. But all right, so we're saying something like that happened. There, this is good enough. There's our table. Now, remember, wipe off your palette knife like that, and then let's just give this a dry. You don't want to get your hands in it. Let's just dry this real quick. And as I do that, I'm giving my base a dry. See, my base is getting drier as I do this. Okay, so the base is getting drier too. See, I mean, it's not completely dry, but it's dry to the touch. All right, so there's this. Now what? Okay, I'm a little worried I didn't get this totally straight. Here's my little triangle. I want to make sure I got my... Oh, I did. Look at that. I was worried that this wasn't straight, so I'm going to line that up like that. Make sure that this is lined up on this side. That makes this a straight line. So if you were wondering if you got a straight line going across here, you line it up on a straight edge, and then you can see. I love these little triangles. They're really nice references. Okay, so all kinds of things to get at the art store. Now, chalk. here's our vase. We're not going to do much more on it right now. We'll finish it up later. Let's take some chalk and figure out where our big flowers are going to be. Kind of over here, we've got one sort of a bell-shaped flower like this. Okay, that's a big one. All right, and then all this in here is going to be poppies. And we got one here, but I guess we could put it, but it's going to be a little one right here. And then there's one over the vase I'm not going to put. And let's go, how far up are we going here with this? Way up here in the corner, we've got one sort of just kind of round. And so basically, if we did some circles down into here, I don't know if I can get all these in, but I'll get a lot of them in. It'll still look like his. If I don't get them all in, there's a big one here. There's some big ones in here. But this whole business right in this center is going to be the little poppies. So I'm just sort of taking my chalk and deciding what's what. And interestingly, these flowers go clear to the edge here. So let's change colors, chalk, so I can see it. These flowers here coming all the way over here. And there's one here right next to the edge of the picture. And then there's, so this is coming out of the vase. Everything's coming up like this. I want you to see it's coming up like this and out and over. Here's a little one here. So this is all filling in. Your chalk, you're not really drawing it in, but you're at least deciding, you know, your parameters, you know, how far out you're going to go and what it's going to be. See that? I'm just saying this is as far out as I'm going to go. That's this one. All right, so let's just say that. All right, so I've got a map now. Maybe it doesn't make sense to you. It makes total sense to me. And I think for me, the easiest thing to do would be to take a small brush and maybe some Cad Red Medium. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put in, just want to put in this darker poppy up here like this. I'm just going to come in. Let's do Napthol Crimson. I don't like that. Let's do a little Napthol Crimson. So there's a poppy up here like this. And then I've got another one here. I'm just sort of not trying to draw anything in too clever. Just got a round one here. Just going to draw it in with red paint. Like this. And then I've got a bunch of them here. This was a big area here. There's three. There's three here. There's this one. And there's going to be this one and this one. It's all one poppy. Let's see. Coming out to the edge. I'm just trying to figure out what the parameter is of this and where it is going to go on the vase. And then I think we said we had one next to the vase. Well, we had one here off of there. We have a half of one here. Okay, like that. So I've got one there. And then let's see where else we're going to put them. Let's see, 1, 2, and we've got something up here. And then we got something over here. And as you do these, you know, this is almost like an acrylic sketch. Got another round one here. And if I need to change colors, like for instance, here's Cadmium Red. I'm going to add a little tiny bit of Dioazine Purple to this. Darken this up because I've got a darker one here and I need to distinguish that from this other one. Let's say there's a little darker one here. Then there's one in here. So like three. A little Cad Red Medium for one here. There's another one right here. This was a little lighter. So use the Cad Red here so I can distinguish it. And then there was a bunch of poppies in here and they're kind of hard to tell apart, but they were in here. There's another one that's coming this way. Little Cad Red now, so I can kind of tell the difference. And then I've got one, sort of a small one here. Then you've got, I don't think I have as much room as he did, so I'm going to just say I've got my big one. I've got a big one. It's got to skip down. I'm going to miss a poppy here, but I'm going to say there's my big one right here. Big one right here. Like that. Say there's my big poppy right there. So a little one here, and I'm going to move all this back up. So when you're talking about doing this, just, if you're wrong, just paint them out. I need a little space around here like that, so I'm just going to paint that out. Paint out where you're off. See, just take a little color and paint it out. Okay, so if these are the main poppies, there's some red ones in here, but these are the main ones. And then what happens to those? Well, take a little Dioazine Purple and Burnt Umber, and I know that, for instance, around this poppy it's darker. It's a little bit darker around here, so I'm going to start putting in some of my darks, my dark background color. So with Dioazine Purple, a little Napthol Crimson, maybe, let's see what that does. No, it's got to be Burnt Umber. So, put more Burnt Umber out. And Ultramarine Blue. Need that background color again. Okay, make sure I have it on my plate. Alright, so see what we're doing here. Burnt Umber, Ultramarine Blue. Want this dark. Want this dark in the center. Right here. Before I start doing anything else, want this dark. Make sure I have it around this flower. And we can kind of make some other adjustments, but this was real dark back over in here. Pull some brush strokes going this way. And I think we're good here. It's pretty dark next to the vase. We're sweeping this around. There we go. Just leaving some of that blue showing that we had. A little dark brown next to the vase. Okay, so, alright, so that's sort of how I laid this out. Then as long as I'm in that color, I think I'm going to take some dark brown, which is the Burnt Umber and Ultramarine Blue, and make a little dark shadow next to this vase right here. We dried it, remember? Okay. Come down here a little bit, make it right next to here. Let's say it's a little bit darker here, a little shadow next to the vase. A little bit of shadow under here. Okay, so that's going there like that. Okay, so now what? Now we got to put in these fun little tiny ones. I love this. What I love about this painting is all these little fun little buds. Do you see that? All these fun little buds. And that's more of a, what we're going to do. These are easy to do. These are almost a football shape. Does that make sense? If you've ever held a football, they're almost a little football shape. So what we're going to do, take some yellow, Cad Yellow Medium, and a little Ultramarine Blue. Make this sort of lime green, you know, kind of this limey green color, like that. And I'm going to put some Cad Red Medium in it. Kind of mix it up on the chart here. Let me just see if I like that color. More yellow. Some more yellow with a little more blue. Alright, there's my background green color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in here. So I'm going to just start putting in the ones there in the back. And they're pretty solid, but they're one stroke. Does that make sense? These are all behind. Then there's some ones in the front, but these are the darker ones that are behind. There was a mass of these. And so I'm going right on top of all of this. I haven't tried anything. A little bit more yellow with it. I think we're going to change blues. Let's put a tiny bit of phthalo in this, in yellow. There we go. I wanted to brighten it up just a hair. There we go. Just a hair here as we get forward. And we're keeping everything sort of dropping down like that. And we just lighten this up so you can see it. Okay, and then under here, we're just going to say that there's some of these. And that's under here, there's going to be some. This is sort of this kind of moss green color under here. Like that. These are the under ones. These are the under ones. They even kind of sneak back here into the, behind the vase and behind this flower. These are the under ones. Alright. There's some stems and stuff, but the main ones of these, and there's going to be some over the top of these flowers, but these are the under ones. I'm going to dry those. have to dry them all that well. Now, I'm going to put in the main ones. And before we do that, let's take, this is a little more complicated picture than the zinnias, isn't it? I'm telling you what, we did the zinnias, that was okay, but this one's got a little bit more detail to it. I need a couple little stems, and I need some background stems going in here first. Always start with the things that are behind everything else. So let's mist our paint. Paint's been out here a long time. This is just about an hour. We're about ready to stop here for part one. This is what we're going to do. This is part one. All right. And then we're going to keep going with this vase. But I want you to see, this is as far as we got in an hour, because this is a bigger picture. Now I want to come up here like this, under these potential poppies, put some stems. There was a couple here that have to go in before everything else. And there was one that came back like this. Little tiny one here that's kind of in the background. Came there. The rest of these, there can be a few little stems. The rest of these we can do later. But I needed those two in here. They were kind of almost an orange, a yellow and red. They're almost like a little orange stem here, these two little stems here. There's a bunch of them coming in here. Now, at the bottom, now we're going to take the same little brush, Phalo Blue, and Cad Yellow Medium, and a tiny bit of Cad Red Medium, and we're going to make this sort of lime green, kind of celery green color. Little tiny bit, drop of Ultramarine Blue in it, just a drop. Now I want to come up here from the bottom of the vase now. Start doing this, up from the bottom of the vase. Start pulling up some of this green. Remember, it's a little lighter, right on top of some of those things we just did. A little bit of green. And, all right, now, let's come in here from the background. We're going to use this color, and let's lighten up a couple of these ones in the background. Let's see, put a little Dioazine Purple with this. Trying to gray green, how do you make purple? It's red and blue. So if you add a little purple to green, that will gray it just enough. Or see, that's a little bright. And I'm coming up here with a few more of these poppies. A few more of these in the background, like that. Some different colors on my brush, like this. Come over here with a couple. So a little bit more, put a little Cad Yellow Medium on one side, a little green on the other. Let's see what we get. Okay, now we're saying that these are crossing over like this. And back into here. Let's see, every couple of these, get some. Do please get more paint. I'm doing 2 or 3 and getting paint. I'm going to put one out this way. Maybe one going like this. But every time I do this, I get a little more paint. I'm going to do some of these. I'm going to start layering these on. Like that. And if you add a little white to this, like a tiny bit of white, where you have to go over something that's slightly different. Now there's one that's over the top of this vase right here. There's one that's right here, going over this vase. Make sure you've got that sort of painted well. It's almost the same color in here. There's almost a little of that color in the vase. See that? A little bit of it. Anyway, okay. And let's see, we've dropped some down here like this. Now keep lightening up the greens as we do this. All right, we're lightening them up. And let's see, we're going to put a couple right there. Now there's some that go over the top of these flowers. This is just almost our underpainting for these. This is almost our underpainting. I'm adding a little bit more white on my brush as I go. Lightening up. It's too white, but I want to lighten up some of these in the front. Here's one peeking out this way. Change the direction of them. Some are going this way, some are going this way, some are going this way. Don't be afraid to change the direction of some of these. Okay, so that's sort of a good map. There's a bunch under here that were a little darker. There's a bunch under here that were a little darker, so we're going to put these over our wall here and back here on the bottom of the vase. There we go, like that. So all right, we're at an hour. We're going to stop here. This is part 1. This is as much as we're going to do. We will keep going, but I want to just stop at this point and say this is the first part of our poppies. All right, this is what we're going for. We're getting there. It just doesn't have to happen overnight. And I'm going to just make one little quick adjustment before I stop. I put that other green on here and I don't like it. So I'm going to just take a little bit of my Phalo blue and white and just put over that with a little Cad Red Medium. Gray this out a bit. There, so I just changed that because I didn't like it. Okay, now we can add more stuff. We haven't finished the vase even, but we're pretty good here. So that's where we're going to stop. And both parts are going to be up. So have fun with this. This doesn't happen quickly, but just be patient because you may not, sometimes I'll do something in an hour because I'm doing it real small, but this is an 8 by 10 picture because it needed to be large enough for you guys to really appreciate the how to do the texture and how to do the palette knife. So that's what I wanted to do. So I think I'm right here at 1 hour and I'm going to stop it. So check out the next one and find my little cursor here on my computer. And we're just going to, at this point, this is where we are. This is where we're stopping, okay? We're not done yet.